Hi, in today's beginner sewing tutorial, I am going to show you how to sew an accurate seam allowance on a straight or curved line. There is a specific point to focus on and there are some little hacks and tips. So let's get straight into today's sewing tutorial. Okay, so to start with, if you're sewing a straight line, the area you need to focus on is the vertical lines on your machine here. It's already marked out with some seam allowances. To help you stay on the line, I might help to put something like an elastic band or painter's tape. Okay, so I could put this on the 1/2 inch seam allowance and that helped me at the start. Okay, I don't need to use that now. So when you're practicing sewing on your seam, okay, I'd like to practice on a piece of paper first because paper just moves so smoothly with the feeder dogs, okay? So you can either use a plain sheet of paper or use ones with that are lined, so you can follow these lines, or I have one here with a full grid. I'd prefer to use the grid because this will help you assess where to turn the piece of paper because there's all these grooves on it, or all these grids on it, so you can see where your seam allowance should be before you turn the paper. So if you are practicing with a piece of paper, you don't need any thread. So I've taken the bobbin out and I've pulled this thread out. Okay, so there's no need to waste any thread. So I'm going to practice with a 1/2 inch seam allowance, but it is actually good to practice sewing on the line and then slowly moving over line by line. Now here's a tip: at the beginning you want to just use your bare foot on the pedal. That just helps you get a better feel of how much pressure you should apply. Now the good thing by using a sheet of paper with grids is I can assess how far I am from the seam allowance and when I need to turn a piece of paper. So this is 3 boxes from the seam allowance, so when I am 3 boxes to the bottom, then I can turn my piece of paper. So again, just one more time, and now with the needle down in the paper, lift the foot and turn. Okay, and then continue from here. And if you've overshot the edge with your seam allowance, just put your finger on the reverse and then turn the dial to try to go back to that point. And then you can lift your foot up and pivot. So now let's work on a curved line. Now a curved line could be a bit harder, and what I'd recommend is if you do have a clear foot with your machine, then switch it to the clear foot. So to start with, it might help to sew on the line and a clear foot can help with that. So then just grab your marker and draw a curve. Quick tip, I keep all my essentials in the accessory drawer, but this is not an enclosed one, so I have some magic tape inside. And in there I stick my needle key, spare foot, bobbin and thread, and I have my spare needles in here as well. So I'm going to move the needle down and try to get it on the line. Okay, then I'm going to turn the paper to where that line is going to be straight ahead of the needle. Put the foot down and then put your foot on the pedal and aim to hit that line. Okay, so this turn is getting a bit tight here, so I am going to ease up and lift the foot slightly and move the line in front. And then again, ease up, lift the foot slightly, move it over so that the line is straight ahead. So at no stage am I pulling or tugging on the paper. I am just turning it and guiding it and walking my fingers along it to help move it into the direction towards the needle. And as you can see there, it's all sewn perfectly along the curve. And I'm only a beginner myself, but once you know the basic principles of where you should be focusing on, you'll be able to do this yourself. If you're sewing a straight line, it's these vertical lines on the sewing machine that you need to focus on. But if you were to do something like curved, wavy lines, then what you need to focus on is the needle. Now, by that I don't mean looking at the needle, I mean looking at the adjacent line. Okay, so what I've actually done is I've used a Sharpie marker to draw a line, and I'd recommend you to do that as well. Okay. So you need to get a ruler, push it right up to the needle, and then make sure it is straight. And then from there I use a Sharpie marker, go behind the machine and draw a straight line from the needle out to the end of my grid. And then it's this line that I should focus in on. If you want, you can cut out a perfect circle or any other shape to practice on, but my girls will be up soon, so I'm just going to stick with this imperfect odd oval shape. I am going for a 1/2 inch seam allowance. It's at this exact point here where the 1/2 inch line meets the Sharpie mark that we want to focus our piece of paper on, and that will give you a perfect seam allowance on any piece of fabric. Okay, so let's do that. I'm going to move the sheet right up. Okay, and then I'm also going to try to have the sheet paper somewhat along the rest of the vertical line around here. Use your dowel to move the needle in to the paper and then get started. And the grooves here help me assess when I should turn, because I think the seam allowance is very hard to assess on a turn when you're starting off. So now I'm going to lift the foot, pivot, and overshot the mark. Put the foot down, reverse button, and turn the dial. And as you can see here, there was our mistake, but overall that is pretty much a perfect seam allowance all around, at least for a beginner like ourselves. And a bonus tip, if you have small children in the house, always leave your machine with the needle down at the bottom. Okay, so I use the dowel, turn it down so that the needle is at the bottom. This reduces the chances for the kids to get up and stick their fingers underneath the needle and injure themselves. So let me know in the comment section down below what projects you are working on or what you plan to sew. I hope you found today's tip useful. If you did, please do give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for more videos like this, and be sure to hit that notification bell right beside the subscribe button so you receive a notification every time I upload a new video. So I upload videos on hacks and tips and products for moms. I will be doing a sewing series purely because it's my new love and hobby, but I am very passionate about saving time and resources, and I genuinely believe every household should have a subsidised sewing machine. I think with a sewing machine, we'd all make our own little minor alterations and repairs, not necessarily make our own clothes, but even at that, it will help reduce our carbon footprint. So until the next video, stay safe, wash your hands, thank you and goodbye.